I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're exploring a profound book, an important book, a must-read book. It is called The Joseph Project by Reverend Norman Stewart. It is a transformative guide to overcoming life's biggest challenges, drawing from the biblical story of Joseph. This book reveals the timeless principles that turned a young slave into a governor, offering a blueprint for true prosperity and unwavering faith. Today, we will discover how the virtues of integrity, humility, and perseverance can be your keys to success, no matter the obstacles. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Reverend, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. I'm so glad to be here today.
Glad to have you on the show. This is an important book. I think the lessons of Joseph are so important for people to understand and heed. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write the book, The Joseph Project.
I have been in the ministry for the past almost 60 years. And I have been involved in just about every aspect of the Joseph experience. So having dealt with so much of this in the past 3 or 4 years, I decided to put some of this together. I've dealt with most of the experiences that Joseph has been through. I've been in the prison ministry. I've seen families falling apart, seen drug addiction. And with all of this, they relate so much to what is happening today. So I felt God was leading me to put this together.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is much to be learned from his story, many parallels to modern life. How do you feel the story of Joseph applies to modern day challenges?
It's very, very relevant because, first of all, Joseph experienced, possibly he was one of the first person to experience the slave trade that we're seeing today. And following up on that, he experienced most of what we're seeing today. So the situation is very relevant to many of the experiences we're seeing today. Starting with families falling apart, sibling rivalry. You know, it began in the Garden of Eden with Cain and Abel. And Joseph's parents, Jacob and Esau, were also rivalries. So it began all the way there. And today we find the same thing that's happening in so many families. So it's very relevant. And so many, many families and young people can empathize with what happened in Joseph's life.
Right. And to summarize Joseph's story, he was the favorite son of Jacob. His siblings became jealous of him. They basically led to his imprisonment, and through his own talent and perseverance, became a favorite person amongst the Egyptian hierarchy. And during a time of famine, he welcomed the brothers who had betrayed him to food and to feast, right?
Exactly. So
that's a decent summary?
That's a decent summary, of course.
Okay.
But
how do you feel readers can apply Joseph's principles to their own lives today?
Well, first of all, the application is that regardless how difficult life might seem, when we look to God for help, He's always there, even when we are not able to see that He's there. And very often we question the fact that, why is this happening to me? I guess Joseph had asked the same question. But in the long run, as he said to his brothers, you did this to hurt me. But God was actually orchestrating all of this to his glory. And out of this, he was not only able to save Egypt from the famine, but also his own family and the entire world at that time.
Yeah.
When we look at what is happening today, we discover that many of the hardships we go through, God has a plan in it. Ultimately, it benefits not just us, but through us, it can benefit others, not only through our experience, but also the benefit we get from it, we can share with others.
Yeah. Tell us what the Joseph Project teaches about overcoming rejection and abandonment.
That is really the theme of the Joseph Project. And that's why the subtitle of the book is Stumbling Blocks Becoming Stepping Stones. Joseph thought that, the story illustrates that his brothers betrayed him. And from an ordinary standpoint, it seems that he was abandoned. He entered Egypt as a slave, but he was resilient. He didn't allow that to discourage him. He was loyal. He was faithful to his masters. And because of that, he excelled in what he was doing. He became very good at his job. And because of that, he earned a very good position in the employ of Potiphar. That earned him actually the highest position in that position. And as a result of that, he had the highest job with Potiphar. It seemed as if this was ultimately what God had in store for him, but God had something better for him. Yeah. The other thing we noticed about Joseph was that when he was in prison, he was so compassionate that even though he was in prison, he noticed that his fellow prisoners, the servants of the king, had a problem. They had this dream. They couldn't understand what the dream was, and it bothered them. Joseph observed their countenance, and he wanted to help them. Sometimes it's, we're so overcome with our problems, we're not able to help anybody. But that is so different with Joseph. And sometimes the lesson here is when we help others, we ended up helping ourselves.
Absolutely. Tell us the difference between true prosperity and material wealth, how the two differ.
The difference is there's a verse in the Proverbs that says, trust in the Lord at all times. It says, trust in the Lord with all your might. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Often we pursue the material things. They might work or they might not work for a while, but they never last. And many times, even when people succeed at gaining the material things, the satisfaction is fleeting. But when we look to God, it's permanent. Joseph went through much. What he gained not only rewarded him, naturally, he ended up having a good life himself, which was prosperity for him. But it caused or it enabled not only the nation, not only his family, but he even left a legacy. And that in itself is true prosperity. Most people today believe that what they are able to accomplish in a few years lasts, but then they get ill and all they spend what they earn in getting wealth.
Mm.
And often they get well to get health, and then they get well, and the wealth they earn to get health, the health goes, and so the wealth is spent on getting the health that they lose, and it's always a cycle that
Yeah.
never lasts.
Absolutely. It's a vicious circle or a conundrum for sure. One of the greatest attributes of Joseph, of course, is forgiveness. Is this important in our lives today, in achieving success, in achieving the life that the Lord has wanted us to live?
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we are not really satisfied until we learn to forgive.
Hmm.
It is said of Mandel, when he left prison, he looked back after he got through the gates of the prison in South Africa, and he said, unless he could leave the bitterness behind, he would still be in prison.
Hmm.
When we learn forgiveness, it's not setting the person that we forgive free. We are the ones that are free. And one of the things that I bring out in the book is the fact that bitterness, hatred, these things are a part of the prison that imprisons us. And until we learn that we can be free from this prison of bitterness and hatred, Joseph exemplified that by forgiving his brothers. And while his brothers were free as far as bondage was concerned, he was the one that was free. There's a little poem that says, stone wall does not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. We are not really free until we learn to forgive others.
Amen. That's a great note to leave this on. The name of the book is The Joseph Project by Reverend Norman Stewart. It is a transformative guide to overcoming life's biggest challenges. It draws from the biblical story of Joseph, and this book reveals the timeless principles that turned a young slave into a governor, offering a blueprint for true prosperity and, most importantly, unwavering faith. Reverend, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. I'm so glad to be here.
Great to have you on the show. I appreciate your insight and sharing your faith with us as well. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.